A very happy Christmas to you all. Just looking out of my window here in Manchester towards the Manchester City Stadium, it's just starting to snow at 1:30 on Christmas Day. Now, it's been a funny Christmas for us all. Limited numbers in church and limited servers and limited singing and all of those things. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that we can celebrate it. We can celebrate the coming of God to be one of us, of sharing our nature completely, of revealing himself to us completely. We have the first words of God to us when he comes in the flesh. And the first words that God says to us when he comes in the flesh is, I'm thirsty. I want some milk. God needs us. God is dependent upon us. God is poor and shows his poverty, giving himself away, and also in need. It is a remarkable thing that we celebrate as Christians. We celebrate the agape of God, the giving, the self-sacrifice, the emptying of God, and also his need. That he's thirsty, that he needs his mum and his dad. Now that mixture, which is God for us in Jesus, is something which we approach with wonder. We cannot understand that. And like many of the things that we're going to see in the life of Jesus and his death and his resurrection, the human mind buckles under the weight of these things coming together. That God is a creature, that the Almighty is in need, that the eternal word moving is a baby's cry, that the one who sustains all is so fragile, simultaneously. He's still the Word of God, proceeding forth, never stops being that, and he's now so small and fragile, being part of the creation he creates and sustains. For Jews and for Greeks, this is foolishness. For the world, that means this is foolishness. But for us with faith, it's everything. It's the contemplation of God. When our minds tire from taking these images in, when our minds can no longer put things together logically or coherently, when our minds run out of steam or fall asleep, then love is the way in which we know that we are caught up in love of the God we cannot see, that he's become visible so that we can love things which are invisible, which are beyond our knowledge. But love can know in a way that nothing else can. Some ways to help us with that, loving knowing, is to look at the scene at Bethlehem. Some things we start off with filling our minds with, and we let them run their course. Things like, for example, the thing that always strikes me is the figure of St. Joseph going back to his family home of Bethlehem, going back for the census. He went back to his home. His family were there. His parents, perhaps his brothers, his brothers anyway, with their wives, his nephews and nieces. Everyone closest to him was there. And none of them gave him shelter. None of them gave him a bed for his pregnant wife. What was Joseph's character for them? How had he earned such an outsider's place? To give a bed to a heavenly pregnant woman is of obligation, and yet Joseph and his own family found nowhere apart from the stable where the sheep were. So that's the thing about St. Joseph I always found quite fascinating. What is it in him that leads to this ostracism? And he ends up as a labourer, carpenter, in a very, very dodgy place up in Galilee, Nazareth. Not the old royal family of Bethlehem. And this stable they go to, this place where the sheep give birth, a birthing pen, a lambing pen for sheep. Well, it's Bethlehem where the sheep were kept for the temple. The lambs which were sacrificed at the temple were born in Bethlehem. The shepherds at Bethlehem were priests from the temple. Now then, notice what's happening here. This rejection by men, rejection by the closest, comes to bring them to the birth of Christ in a birthing pen for a lamb who is going to be taken to the temple and slaughtered. And the slaughter of the lambs is on the Friday of the Passover. It is the day of the crucifixion. The Lamb, without blemish, is born with the lambs without blemish. Even the swaddling clothes are part of it. They're kept so precious of these lambs. And the vision of angels to the shepherds is the vision of the temple. We mark his coming in our flesh already with Calvary. We celebrate his birth by celebrating the Mass. Now, I'll leave everything there. But when we think about those things, and our minds ponder those things, they draw fruit from them. But as we continue to contemplate this wondrous event, the centre of history, the coming of heaven and earth in one person, we look and we gaze and we worship and we adore in amazement. And then love takes over, love of this person, and we're caught up in that person, and we are directed out to our neighbour. The worship of God in the church the worship of God in the sacrament of his presence, the worship of God in the manger compels us to copy him, to go out and to be foolish and to be reckless because of love. Doesn't matter who thinks anything about us, who says anything about us. We are compelled by the very object of our wonder to copy him. So God bless and have a gentle Christmas, and speak in the next few days if I can.